5, The Right Cocktail. This one is about me firing my psychiatrist. So, the very first psychiatrist I really didn't like from the very first meeting that we had when he was, first of all, he looked really young and he looked like he just came out of school. And I was correct because when I was at the conclusion of my visit, I asked the ladies about him, and they told me how long he has been practicing, which was about, I don't know, 5 years or less. So I did not like that he seemed uninterested when I was speaking to him, almost as if he wasn't rolling his eyes, but he gave me that impression, that he was rolling, the nonverbal cues. His posture was sort of, bent to the side, kind of looking out to the window. I have better things to do, kind of a thing. I've heard, and I've been a part of this rodeo. I've seen this rodeo once or twice before. So that was, my initial impression of him. Number two was when I told him that I needed medication to focus. I cannot, and I gave him history of me not be me being able to focus all through high school, being up really really late at night till about 11, or midnight doing homework, not being able to go out with friends like I wanted to because I was obsessed about studying and getting the homework done. And I saw other friends in my friend group, they were able to manage their social life and school life. They studied and they didn't feel guilty about not completing things, right? And they seem to be getting things done in a timely manner. So I knew that something was, wrong, amiss at that time. And then, of course, in college, I just couldn't focus at all. I really think I needed a year break to just travel and see the world and hike and do what I wanted. But I was pressured by my mom and the rest of my family to go to college. And I did it anyway, but I really didn't want to be there. My passive aggressive really showed up when I would not show up for class, literally just not show up. And I would do that by sleeping late. And I also lied to myself saying, oh, well, maybe if, it's too early, I'm used to being in high school and, having, you know, being under a strict regiment where I had to wake up and now I have all this freedom and I kind of make the choice to stay in bed. And that may be true, but I just honestly didn't want to be there. And so I changed my classes to afternoon classes, and I didn't wake up for that either. As a matter of fact, when I did go to campus early and I had a big break in between classes, I would say, okay, I'm going to hang out on campus. I'm not going to go home because if I go home, there's no way that I am going to get out of that bed or stop watching TV or hanging out or whatever it is that I was doing and go back to class. And I lived off campus. So I didn't have that peer pressure of living on campus where everyone is always talking about college, always talking about study groups. Everything is surrounded by, even in social groups that's on campus, it's always surrounded by graduating, completing. And I think that was one of my biggest mistakes. But now that I remember clearly, that was also me being passive aggressive because I didn't want to go to college. I spent no time in researching, visiting uh, universities for the new patients. I'm sorry, the new students coming in. I didn't join a sorority, go through Rush. I didn't even research them. I didn't do any of that. I literally, at the last minute, I think our valedictorian was going to this university, and I thought, and it wasn't a prestigious university at all. It was more labeled as a party school, anyone can get in. But I thought to myself, if our valedictorian, oh no, she wasn't our valedictorian. She was the valedictorian from the year previously. And I thought, well, if it's good enough for her, then it's good enough for me. And then I found out later on in life that people choose universities for different reasons. Kind of like when a company invests their stock in something and everyone think that because that's a very prestigious company or they're worth a lot of money, that stock might be a good reason, but you never really know why a certain company invests in a bad or what they perceive or what everyone else perceived in a bad stock. There many different reasons behind that. Um, that we're just not privy to, and I had no idea who my valedictorian really was. I mean, the previous year valedictorian, I never spoken to her. I didn't sit down and ask her, but if I had to take an educated guess, I would say that it may have been for the nursing program, because that nursing program at that specific university is the best in the state. Not one of the best, but the best in the state. So if I had to take a guess, a good guess, I would say that's the reason why. And I had no interest in wanting to be a nurse at all. So I shouldn't have been there. And so, of course, I did not fill out the application or the FAFSA in time, and I purposely procrastinated. And another reason why is because I really did not have, even though my parents were pressuring me to go and the rest of my family members were, they weren't actually sitting down with me or helping me or guiding me through the process. I was literally all on my own in this. I had to figure it out all by myself. And I literally was teaching my parents what to do. Like, hey, they're asking for the tax returns. I need it. And I'm pretty sure I made a lot of mistakes because they would constantly email me and say, this was incorrect. You need to go back in, you need to correct that, and you need to upload this to the website. We didn't receive that. And so I did a lot of that, and then calling after sending things over, double checking, making sure they got it. So it was really stressful for me. Um, and so after going through that process, I certainly was not interested in doing that for several universities that I knew that I could definitely get into because my grades were great. And I I also didn't want to do any type of stipulations, send us a video, write an essay. I was just like, I don't have time for this. I mean, either you want me or you don't. This brain is worth $1 million. Take it or leave it. That's what, that's the type of attitude I had when I was graduating college. And so I did not fill out any paperwork at all to be on living on campus. And of course, I found out that the sooner you fill out your FAFSA and your application, you will get boarding, because the ones who wait at the last minute, you will either be in a dorm that you don't want to be in, or you'd have to live on campus. And so my aunt happened to work with one of the ladies, excuse me, that was going to, I believe she was a sophomore or junior, that was attending the university that I was going to. And she said, hey, my niece is going to be attending there. It's her very first year. She doesn't have housing. She did not fill out the apps, on time. And then she said, hey, we need another roommate. We're living in a 4-bedroom townhouse off campus. As a matter of fact, there's a trail that leads from our subdivision into the back of the sorority houses and frat houses too. I think it was both on that street. I think all of the sorority houses was on the left, and all of the fraternities was on the right. And then that trail leads right into the campus. And there was no gate or anything. It was a beautiful trail with beautiful trees. And when it was really hot in the summertime, you had really nice shade with a little bit of breeze coming through. So you could walk really freely and get to class. And of course, I didn't do that. And so again, that was me telling my family, hey, I don't want to do this, but no one caught the hint, and I did not have um, the courage at the time to speak up. I just did what my family expected of me. And so, getting back to the topic of me firing my psychiatrist, so I'm telling the psychiatrist, that even in college, I had issues concentrating. So not only did I not want to be there, but when I did get to class, I just could not concentrate. I couldn't. The words were just really, I don't know, jumbling together. I remember taking physics class. I think it was an AP class in 12th grade, and I loved that class. I did really well in that class. And I started to, and I loved chemistry too. I took chemistry in 11th grade, and I loved it as well. Think that was also an AP class as well, and that was in another state. And let me tell you, I was in college, and I just couldn't focus. I couldn't keep up, and I just could not understand why, because some of those concepts were concepts that we brushed on in high school, and I loved it, and I was really interested in it. And I thought to myself, what in the world is going on? I loved learning about history, paintings surrounding history. One of my favorite courses. It made me think, well, I think I would love to be a curator in a museum. This would be so um, right up my alley, because I just love learning about the history behind the actual painting. And I couldn't get my brain focused enough to write an essay. I mean, it was just insane, the amount of mumbo jumbo that was going on in my brain. And I went from an A and B student to failing all of my classes the first year, and maybe a few D's. I even failed tennis. I love tennis. I enjoy playing tennis. I took tennis as one of my health. I don't think it was health ed. I think it might have been like a PE course. I don't really remember what it's called, but I really enjoyed playing tennis, and I didn't even apply myself to get a good grade. And after a while, I didn't even show up, and it was so weird because I would. There was a tennis court in the back of my subdivision when I lived off campus my first year. And I would just go there by myself in my tennis outfit and hit balls by myself. So it was so bizarre. And then when I graduated college, I needed a lot of stimulation. I refused to get desk jobs because I just couldn't sit still. I couldn't look at that computer. I couldn't go through files and read it. So when I started working at other jobs that gave me a lot of stimulation. Things were jobs where I could move around, get up out of my seat, and interact with people. I did really well. As a matter of fact, one of my jobs involved reading 100-page um, contracts where I had to find loopholes in the contracts, loopholes that would release clients from their contracts. And I enjoy doing that. I enjoy finding something that releases someone from something, or finding something that would stick it to someone. I know it's kind of weird. At first, my job was to read the 100-page contract and find something that would hold the client accountable. And then I would have to send it off to the legal team for them to match what I found up to local and state laws. And then we switched gears to client based, where we would find things in the contract that would hold the business accountable, and how the clients can get out of that contract. And it was so weird because, I mean, these were some crazy wording. I could tell that these were high powered attorneys with Harvard and Yale degrees that put this nonsense together, because there is no way the average person could understand what they were saying. But the crazy part is I understood it and I enjoyed it. Again, I just could not get that type of focus in college. And I really believed if I had lived on campus, I would have been, because I would have had the stimulation that I needed, that my neurodivergency needed. Because remember, I've been diagnosed with ADHD, inattentive and hyper. So I'm, one, not able to pay attention, and two, I'm really hyper. So I need stimulation. So oh my goodness. So anyway, I was really upset when I went through all of that history on my very first patient visit. And I made sure to go through all of that history so that I could paint a picture of why I needed medication for focus. And then he said, well, how is your day now? I said, well, I work 12 hours a day. I wake up 3 hours prior before having to go to work. It takes me about 10 minutes to get to work, but the other 2 hours and 50 minutes is me getting ready for work. I'm not even working out. And the days that I do work out, I get up another 45 minutes, earlier than that. And so I think that I'm having trouble trying to get my morning routine. Sometimes I forget things. I have to go back home and get it that I needed for work. I also will wake up, um, get up when the alarm goes off, or sometimes I don't even need the alarm, and I'd sit on my bed and I'd space out for a good 20 minutes, not realizing that I probably need to get up and brush my teeth and take a bath and start, putting on my makeup and getting ready for work. And then he said to me, he said, how long have you been doing this? So I told him, since I first started the first day. And he said to me, well, your problem is not focusing, because you're able to focus to get it done. And when he said that, it just made me so, I don't know if I was angry or annoyed or disappointed, maybe all three. But I just looked at him like he was crazy. Like, dude, this is not normal. It does not take 2 hours and 50 minutes to get ready. And I just told you I have time lapsed where I'm just sitting there not doing anything, not remember what I'm supposed to do, when this is something that's should be a no-brainer, right? Everyone, when they get up, in order to get ready for the day, you got to brush your teeth, take a shower, put your deodorant on, things like that. And if you are into makeup, you put your makeup on. I should not have to think about something like that when it's a part of everyday routine since the moment I was born. So I really just looked at this guy like, you got to be kidding me. Are you kidding me? So I listened again. I just listened because I kept saying to myself, Marsha, you're not a professional. That's the reason why you're here. Allow, the professional to do his job. And so, of course, I was quiet. And then after I finished explaining everything, he said to me, he said, something about cyclical mania. And he said, with that, you know what? No. When I told him that I get 2 weeks worth of actual productivity out of the year, and the other 2 weeks I'm just, I don't know, fatigue, lethargic, malaise. I'm just out of it. I just don't want to do anything. And he said, "How long have this been going on?" And I said, "Maybe for the past 2 or 3 years, I've been feeling like that." And then he said, "What did he say to me?" He said, "Well, during." A person that is diagnosed with that, and then he starts telling me, well, they get really excited about a project, they don't finish it, they think they're the best guitarist in the entire world, and they're really not. They just started to learn 30 days ago, and they spend a lot of money and on things they can't afford when they're in the mania state. And I was really annoyed when he said that. And I'm not saying that any of that is not true, but he didn't ask me. I wish he had asked me instead of Yes, he was kind of explaining the symptoms and giving me some examples of what he is diagnosing me with, but it was also accusatory. And I didn't like that. I wish he had asked me, do you go through this? Have you ever had this happen to you? How many times? When was the last time that you did this? And he didn't ask any probing questions. And so I did not feel like being an experiment. I really didn't. If the psychiatrist was new, maybe if I was younger and I didn't know any better, I'd just be grateful, right, for any help. But now that I'm 40 and I've worked in the emergency room, I know that a brand new resident is not what you not what you want, because the doctors allow them to make mistakes. The doctor over them, the attending physicians, and they say, well, it's the only thing. That's the only way they're going to learn. And I knew for a fact, I was like, I am not going to be this man's dummy, his for him to make mistakes and so that he can learn, um and his maybe the psychiatrist that's over him is just allowing him to misdiagnose me so that he can learn. And I said, no way in hell. And so I I said, you know what? While he was talking, all of these thoughts were going through my head, and I said, you know what? I'm just going to give him the benefit of the doubt and go through with this. So I did. And then after our follow up visit, I think it was 30 days to 45 days later, he wanted to get me before the 90 days because, really, honestly, in order for a medication to work, I've been reading these journal articles. I did not ask my psychiatrist. So, again, I don't know if this is exactly true. It's something I read in a journal article that you really got to give it 90 days for that medication to actually work the way it's supposed to. Because at first, your body is going to react to a foreign entity that has never been in your body before. So, you're probably going to have some side effects. And he wanted to catch me before it was too late. So, he said, "Hey, how's the medication going?" And I said, I mean, it was literally like 10 minutes, the follow up. And I thought, what the crap is this? And I said, I told him, I said, the good news is the Lamotrigine is working well. My mood is stable, and also the Buspirone is really good. It is helping to prevent my anxiety at work. And when I'm calm, I'm able to think clearly and think of solutions that is both beneficial to me and the company as well. I'm not just having tunnel vision about me, and that's really helping to forge some great work relationships. And he said, okay. And I said, I still need something to focus. I'm not prioritizing my task at work very well. I am still spending a lot of time. For instance, if there is something that is due at 5 o'clock, I'll get that done because I like to get things done that is not due ahead of time, because in my brain, I want to think that I'm ahead, which is silly because I have things that are due now, which is going to put me behind. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, I could not organize things in sequential order in my brain. I couldn't prioritize very well. I did not have the ability to understand what is urgent and what is not. Another thing, that I had a huge learning curve, and I masked it very well because I would go home and prepare for work the next day. I watched everyone else learn things fast. I was not one of those people that's a fast learner. And I didn't, it took me a long time to complete one task. But it's crazy because I fooled everyone because everyone thought that I completed things fairly quickly. But I don't think anyone, unless they are neurodivergent, they have no idea what we have to do to pretend, what we have to do to mask, what we have to do to keep up. So while they're thinking that I am keeping up and doing everything well, or even better than well, right? I am double checking my work. I mean, constantly, constantly. So it's a lot of overtime. And then when I went home, I would be severely exhausted. And I told him this, and he still refused to um, prescribe me something for focus. He said, we just need to allow the medication to work. Once your mood gets evened out, you won't have any problem focusing. And I said, okay. And the next appointment was going to be at the 90-day mark. And I said, no way, no way. And I was having trouble finding a psychiatrist within a 1 hour and a half radius of where I lived, even with the recommendation that my primary care physician gave me. When I called, first of all, they took a long time to call me. And when they did, they told me that I needed to call some other number. I did, and no one answered. So finally, I was able to get someone, and I was told that that psychiatrist is not accepting new patients. Then I just Googled, called another place, and they said, well, that psychiatrist won't be, they're on vacation or something, and they won't be returning. Then I called back, and they said, oh, he left and went to another practice, so we're getting a new one. And I called back, and they said, well, indefinitely, we have no idea. I mean, it was just crazy. So I had a lot of problems finding a new psychiatrist. And then I just vented my frustration to my therapist, and she said, I can refer you to a psychiatrist. And I said, okay. And the same thing happened. It took about another 4 months to get an appointment because they said that this particular psychiatrist is moving out of the country and he won't be coming back. Then I called back a month later. They said he's not taking new patients. And then I called back again, and finally, he's taking new patients. But the point is, when I did that new patient appointment with that psychiatrist, I really felt like he was taking my needs into consideration, and he exuded confidence and experience. And I looked up his profile, and he's been a psychiatrist for 30 years. And I said, well, no wonder. And I want to tell you about that new patient visit with that psychiatrist. And I had made up my mind. I'd made up my mind once I had that new patient visit. I made up my mind to fire my other psychiatrist. I did not fire my psychiatrist until I had my new patient visit with the new one, because I knew that just making an appointment is not enough, because they can call at any time and say, oh, we overbooked you. Oh, it's going to be another 4 months out, or that physician is not practicing here anymore, or we have to, cancel on you because they're whatever. So after the very first visit, that is when I called, no, I sent an email to the office and said that I'm transferring out to another psychiatrist, and that's it. I did not give any information of where I was, where I'm going. That's none of their business. They didn't ask, and even if they did, I wouldn't tell them because that's none of their business. Once I transferred out, I am no longer your patient. You shouldn't be asking me anything. And they didn't, which I really loved. She respected me for doing that. And I canceled my follow-up appointment. And then she said, what did she say? Well, I had several follow-up appointments that were scheduled, and I kept postponing them because I needed to find a new one. And she said, thank you so much for informing us. And the tone of the email made me think that people normally don't inform the office, and she was really appreciative of that. So it leaving that psychiatrist and moving to the new one, that was for me. It was a stressful transition, not finding one, but when I finally did find one and I left, it was easy. It was an easy transition. So, in part 6, I want to talk to you about my new patient visit with my new psychiatrist. And this is the end of part 5 on why I fired my existing psychiatrist. I'll see you guys in part